The week had a certain rhythm. Monday was a slog. Tuesday was just a slightly less offensive Monday. Wednesday was the hump, a small hill you had to climb just to see the other side. Thursday held a glimmer of hope, the faintest light at the end of a long, dark tunnel. But Friday was different. Friday was a promise. It was a covenant you made with yourself, a silent agreement that the drudgery was over and something better was on the horizon. For so many of us, that something better had a very specific shape. It was rectangular, it was plastic. It smelled faintly of popcorn-scented carpet cleaner and the recycled air of a suburban strip mall. It was the promise of a trip to Blockbuster. This weekly pilgrimage wasn't just about entertainment. The decision was often made around dinner time, sometimes earlier. Are we going to Blockbuster tonight? The question hung in the air, thick with potential. It was a query about more than just a movie. It was a question about winding down, about togetherness, about marking the end of one thing and the beginning of another. It was the starting gun for the weekend. The simple act of getting into the car, knowing your destination was a place dedicated solely to the pursuit of manufactured narratives, felt like a miniature vacation. It was a small but significant escape from the reality of homework, deadlines, and the mundane obligations of everyday existence. The feeling inside the car was a unique cocktail of emotions. The automatic doors would slide open with a gentle whoosh, and the first thing that hit you was the smell. It was a singular aroma, a complex blend that no scientist could ever hope to replicate. It was part processed plastic from the clamshell cases. It was part stale popcorn from the counter display. It was part industrial-grade carpet that had seen a million spilled sodas. This wasn't a bad smell. It was the smell of potential. It was the olfactory announcement that you had arrived at a place where the normal rules of reality were temporarily suspended. You weren't in a store. You were in a library of dreams, a cathedral built to honor the moving image. The layout was always the same, a comforting and predictable geography. To the right, the towering wall of new releases. This was the main event, the Holy Grail. It was where the blockbusters lived, the movies advertised on television and plastered on billboards. This wall was a battlefield. It was where hopes were realized and dashed in an instant. Seeing an empty space where Terminator 2 should have been was a tiny temporary heartbreak. Finding the last copy felt like winning a small lottery. The sheer physicality of it all was part of the magic. You didn't just click on a title. You patrolled the aisles, your eyes scanning, your senses fully engaged in the hunt. Beyond the new releases, the store unfolded into a labyrinth of genres: comedy, drama, action, horror. Each aisle was its own self-contained universe. The browse was not a means to an end. The browse was the event. It was a meditative, almost trance-like state. You'd walk slowly, head tilted, reading the spines, fingers trailing along the plastic, tactile connection. This was a physical act of curation. You weren't being fed an algorithm suggestion. You were making a conscious choice based on a complex matrix. The cover art, the tagline, the cast list, vague, often misleading synopsis. This was intensely personal. Pick up a box, feel its weight, turn it over and over, absorbing the information. The cover art was crucial. A grainy, poorly designed cover for a horror movie could promise schlock. A glossy, airbrushed photo of two movie stars almost kissing told you the rom-com inside. We became experts in visual language, a skill honed over hundreds of Friday nights. Sometimes the back of the box was a portal to another world. The tiny, pixelated screenshots offered a tantalizing glimpse. You'd squint at them, trying to piece together the plot. The summary was often a work of art in itself, a masterpiece of hyperbole. We knew it was marketing, but we didn't care. We wanted to be sold. Choosing a movie was rarely a solo mission. More often than not, it was a complex negotiation, a democratic process fraught with passion, persuasion, and compromise. This was the family summit. Each member returned with their candidate. My dad, a gritty war movie. My mom, a period drama with a British actress in a corset. My sister, the latest teen comedy. Me, an obscure science fiction no one had heard of. The debate began in the aisle. Low-stakes conflict resolution. This one has Tom Hanks. Everyone likes Tom Hanks. But it's 2.5 hours. It's already 8 o'clock. The kids at school said this one is hilarious. I don't want subtitles tonight. A microcosm of family dynamics, a training ground for listening, arguing, conceding. You learned you couldn't always get what you wanted. Shared experience mattered more. Eventually, consensus. Sometimes a true compromise, often a system of turns. Dad picked last week. It's Mom's turn tonight. A lesson in fairness and patience. It built shared history. These weren't just movie nights, foundational family memories. Once the selection was finalized, you proceeded to the checkout counter. This was the final step in the ritual, the sacred transaction. The counter was often a chaotic but exciting place. It was lined with candy, giant tubs of microwave popcorn, oversized fountain drinks. This was the impulse buy zone, almost impossible to resist. Grabbing a box of snow caps, a bag of Twizzlers felt like an essential part of the experience. It was the fuel for the movie night to come. The movie was the main course, the snacks the indispensable side dishes. The clerk, often a teenager, a film school student, played the role of the high priest. They would take your chosen movie, the victor of your family's debate. They would scan your membership card with a satisfying beep. Then came the most important part, the due date. The clerk would stamp the case, or they'd say, "This is due back on Sunday by noon." This deadline added a sense of gravity to the rental. It wasn't yours forever, a temporary loan, a fleeting piece of magic that had to be returned. Scarcity made the time with the movie feel more precious. Walking out with the plastic bag in hand was pure triumph. The drive home from the video store was powered by a different kind of fuel. It was powered by anticipation. The movie, sitting in its plastic bag on the passenger seat or the floor of the back seat, was a coiled spring of potential energy. It was a sealed promise of the evening to come. The conversation in the car would shift. The debate was over. Now it was all about preparing for the main event. Who was going to make the popcorn? Should we dim the lights? The logistics of the movie night were discussed with the seriousness of planning a military operation. This period of waiting was a crucial component of the therapy. It wasn't about instant gratification. We live in an age where any movie is available at the touch of a button, and this immediacy robs us of the pleasure of looking forward to something. The Blockbuster experience built anticipation into its very structure. There was the trip to the store, the browse, the negotiation, and now the journey home. Each step was a layer, building the excitement, making the eventual payoff feel more earned and more satisfying. The waiting was not a bug, it was a feature. Once you were home, the ritual continued. The movie case would be placed in a prominent position on the coffee table, a centerpiece for the evening's activities. It sat there, silently building suspense as you went about the business of preparing the viewing environment. Finally, the moment would arrive, the lights would be turned down. Why did this routine feel so good? Why did a simple trip to rent a movie feel like a form of therapy? The answer lies in its structure and its predictability. The world outside was chaotic and uncertain. School was hard. Work was stressful. The future was a question mark. But Friday night at Blockbuster was a known quantity. It was a reliable source of comfort and control in a world that often offered neither. You knew the layout of the store. You knew the process. You knew that at the end of it, you would be settled on your couch, safe in your home, ready to be transported to another world. This routine provided a psychological anchor. It was a landmark in the topography of our week, a fixed point we could navigate by. The week wasn't an amorphous blob of time. It was a journey that culminated in movie night. This structure gave us something to look forward to, a small but significant reward for making it through the preceding days. It imposed order on the chaos. The act of choosing a movie was an act of agency. In a life where so many things were decided for us, we had complete control over which story we would invite into our homes. The comfort also came from the communal nature of the experience. Even if you went to the store alone, you were participating in a shared cultural ritual. And sometimes, that's the most effective therapy there is. Today, the video store is a ghost. Its physical presence has been erased from our strip malls and street corners, replaced by urgent care clinics, mattress stores. The iconic blue and yellow sign lives on only in our memories. We now have access to a near infinite library of content, available on demand. By any objective measure, this is more efficient and convenient. We have more choice and less friction, and yet, something profound has been lost. The ghost of the video store haunts our modern viewing habits. We scroll endlessly through the digital menus, Netflix, Hulu, a dozen other services. This is the new browse, hollow and unsatisfying. Choices are presented by an algorithm, a black box that thinks it knows what we want. We are paralyzed by the sheer volume of options. The paradox of choice. We traded a communal experience for a solitary one. Movie night used to bring people together in one room. Now we watch what we want, when we want, on personal screens. A family in the same room, inhabiting different narrative universes. The family summit, debates and compromises, is obsolete. We gained personalization, but we lost connection. The tangible object is gone, no box to hold, no cover art to scrutinize. Movies are now ephemeral streams of data, temporary files in a cache. They have no weight, no presence. We no longer feel like we're borrowing something precious. We're accessing a service. It was never just about the movie. It was about everything else.